It's redemption time on the waiver wire this week. We're going to give a lot of young players a second chance. Some guys that didn't quite cut it the first time around, well, maybe now it's time to buy back in. But first, a young player in the Red Sox lineup. I know we talked about two Boston hitters last week. Well, we have to keep buying into this offense because over the past week, they are the highest scoring offense, averaging over 6.5 runs per game. We'll see how long that lasts, but I think we can agree that Ceddanne Rafaela is an exciting young player for multiple reasons. So far this season, 8 home runs and 10 stolen bases. Right there, he's helping you in 2 categories. Hitting .251, and the thing I don't like, I'll just say right now, is the fact that he often hits 9th in order. And so this team obviously doing well enough, they don't need to bump him up, and he's not necessarily going to be a strong source of on-base percentage, so I don't know that he ever will move up that much in the lineup. But still, if they're scoring runs like they are now, and he is giving you some power, some speed, he obviously has fantasy value. But that batting average has come up quite a bit lately because he's had 4 straight multi-hit games. Now, he didn't play on Wednesday, but before that, he was stringing together hit after hit. And what's nice about Rafaela too, and you're going to see this is kind of a recurring theme for this week's players, he qualifies at multiple positions, both infield and outfield, shortstop and center field. That's also good in real life because it gives him some versatility, allows him to stay on the field and in the lineup even if the Red Sox don't feel like they need him for a certain position. I mean, they've been moving pieces all around this whole season. Rafaela is a very good fielder, both in the infield and the outfield, and with the bat and the speed he has, he'll still be out there pretty much every day, so this is a strong add right now. Now that's if he's available. He is available right now in about a third of Yahoo leagues. Depends on your format, your league type. But again, if he's still out there, this might be the last chance you have to pick him up. Now, on the other hand, there's a veteran player who's been hot lately, but people are pretty content to ignore Brandon Lowe in Tampa Bay. Now, you look at the season-long stats, then it's easy to see why. The batting average is low, and he hasn't done a whole lot, and that's because he hasn't done a whole lot the last couple of years other than be on the injured list. It's like one thing after another. I think a lot of people don't even realize that 3 years ago, I know it seems like a much longer time ago, but in 2021, he came one shy of 40 home runs and 100 RBIs in a season, wound up with 39 and 99 that year. And since then, nothing but pain, especially for him, but also for fantasy owners. He had lower back pain for a while, really took him out for 2022. And then since then, patella fracture, this year an oblique strain. It's like he can't catch a break. Well, now he's back again. Well, so far, so good. And in fact, he's been hitting not just for power, but also for a decent average. In June of this season, 268, 4 home runs, and 13 RBIs. Now, realistically, we're not going to expect vintage Brandon Lowe, prime age Brandon Lowe, because he's not that anymore. We know the injuries are still a concern because he's just coming off of one. But still, this is a player who's got legit power. I like that he's hitting second in that Tampa Bay lineup, even though Tampa Bay has been disappointing overall on offense this season. It's not a bad team or a bad offense. He will have a chance to drive in some runs. Second base, not a whole lot of high power options, so if you're looking for help, I think Lowe is definitely worth a shot. Although just as I say that, there's another second baseman who's got some power that you might want to look to. Also coming off injury. In fact, Michael Massey is right now still on the IL, but he's doing a rehab assignment in Omaha, should be back any day. Massey was already looking like a strong pickup earlier in the season. In fact, was stringing together some strong games when he got hurt. So let's go back and see what he had been doing so far this year. Hitting .294 with 6 home runs and 23 RBIs. Again, this is at second base where you could use some pop. This guy who hit 15 home runs last year in just 461 plate appearances. Not really a full season's worth. Now, the Royals offense, on the other hand, and just the Royals in general, have been a pleasant surprise. Not that they've been dominant, but much better than expected. I keep saying, people don't realize this offense does have quite a bit of talent in it. Bobby Wood Jr. is the obvious, but I think that a lot of those players go under the radar because it's a small market team, not a historically great team, especially as of late. But this offense is solid. Massey does have some power The average should be fine, won't hurt you. He's not a pure slugger. You're not going to get steals here, really, maybe a few here and there. But again, a solid power source in the middle infield if that's what you're after. All right, now time for the second chance, guys. We're always after help at catcher, it seems like. Some big name players still hurt. Well, I talked a couple of weeks ago about Tyler Soderstrom for the Oakland A's. This is a guy who's been playing first base and probably eventually will just become a first baseman. Doesn't catch too much these days. And, well, he didn't really get regular playing time, which is really aggravating because he's probably one of their best offensive talents that they have. Very young player, obviously. Well, Soderstrom now is starting to get some more playing time at first base, and he's been hitting either cleanup or fifth, which is very nice. Now, Oakland's offense is not going to get anybody too excited, but we still see here and there they'll have their games where they produce a lot of runs, and recently they've been doing that. In fact, just over the past week, they're tied for 10th most runs scored. They've had some mini outbursts, especially for the A's. Soderstrom has been part of that over the past 2 weeks. He's got 4 home runs and 8 RBIs. Now, batting average is, I wouldn't even say a liability here. I mean, honestly, 230s, 240s probably sounds about right, but we're talking a guy who you're probably slotting at catcher, so that's kind of par for the course here. Now, I recommend picking up in 2 catcher leagues, almost a must-add guy with this kind of upside. As you're starting everyday catcher in a regular 12-team roto league, if you need somebody, right? This is like a temporary fill-in while you wait for Wilson Contreras to come back or something like that. Or if you're just streaming catcher, which is a viable strategy. And then Tyler number 2, let's go and look at Tyler Black again for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was just recalled. He's one of these players who was brought up, saw just very little action. I mean, they gave him a glance for a week and a half, sent him back down. And now they're going to try him out again. Milwaukee is also doing this thing with jerking these players back and forth. It can't seem to settle on infielders here. Well, they finally sent Oliver Dunn down, and now Black gets, again, a shot to prove himself. He didn't really get much of a shot. I can't even say much about what he did or didn't do when he was up earlier for them this season. 5 hits in 22 at-bats. That's fine. He did swipe a couple of bags. This is more of a speed than a power play. What I like about Black is the fact he's going to be on a good team, Milwaukee, but also right now he already qualifies at second base and third base. Well, as of right now, they got him playing first base, which means eventually you might see him be able to qualify at 3 different infield positions. Got that versatility, which is nice in fantasy leagues. He's batting 7th currently, at least in his latest game he is. Let's see how much of a look they give him. Let's see what he can do. And the exact same thing goes for Miguel Vargas. Again, brought back up. Dodgers, I just wish they would give him a chance to be in there on a regular basis because all he's done is hit, really. And not very much to talk about as far as the major league experience this year. I know last year he was horrible, right? But last year is different. He was coming off a thumb injury and just never really got it going. He's got nothing left to prove in the minors. The guy has been raking at AAA. All they need is to give him extended at-bats again at the major league level this year. I mean, so far this year, 8 for 26. That means he's hitting 308 since getting called up this last time. Well, in the 2 games he's played, out of the 3 they've played, he's got an RBI in each game. What worries me about Vargas, it's not the talent or whether he's ready to face major league pitching. It's the fact that they don't seem, again, settled on playing him constantly, especially against right-handed pitching. It might be a thing where he platoons with Jason Hayward, and he would be on the weak side of that platoon, and that would be extremely aggravating. But I know some of you play in very deep leagues. Some of you play in National League only leagues. If that's the case, you got to look at Vargas because at least he can give you something when they allow him to. Now, as far as pitchers this week, I'm excited about some of these young pitchers I'm about to talk about. Let's get this first one out of the way with the veteran, the 35-year-old, Miles Mikolas. I recommended him as a 2-start streamer not long ago, and now, again, he's just developed into a waiver wire ad. If he's out there, I think you just have to grab him. Now, obviously, he's been around the block a while, and you know his game. It's eating up innings. It's not striking out batters that often, but this year, he was just off to an especially rough start. Again, you look at the season-long stats, you just turn away and you keep looking. But you can't do that. You have to look at what has he done lately. He's been pretty much dominant lately. It's really amazing. I mean, out of anybody, if you look at his stat lines, you really dig into how his season's gone. It's kind of ridiculous. You look at Mikolas. So his first 7 starts of the season, he only had 2 quality starts because there were only 2 times he even made it to 6 innings in a game. This is a guy who's supposed to be an innings eater. And then his last 6 starts, 5 quality starts, and he's just going deeper and deeper each time. And in those last 5 starts, again, he's not just out there eating the innings, a 2.59 ERA, and hitters are only batting 176 against him. That's because he's finally refound his control again. I guess he just was waiting to get going this season or what, I don't know. Only 4 walks in his last 5 starts total. He's finally honed it in now. I did mention that strikeout rate. It's not great. You're not going to get a lot from him, but he'll get you at least a few here and there. Being on St. Louis isn't as thrilling as it used to be, but this isn't a horrible team. He should get you some wins, especially because he's giving himself a chance to get those wins. But I will say if you're in a format where you use quality starts instead of wins, which you really should if you don't already, then this is almost a must-add. I also have to point out, just for no reason other than I think it's funny and kind of absurd, how different his run values are for his pitches. If you look, his fastball run value, and mind you, this is not a guy who throws 99, 100. He's got a decent fastball, but he locates it so well. His run value on fastball plus 11, that's 97th percentile. And then when you move to the breaking ball, his run value there is minus 12, which is the first percentile. So he's got one of the most effective fastballs in the game over the course of the season and pretty much the worst breaking stuff imaginable. And yet somehow he's strung together quality start after quality start and hitters are not figuring him out. Well, I guess at least he's refigured himself out. Now, a guy who's definitely figured himself out, a young pitcher here, is Tobias Myers. This very past week on Sunday's stream, I always talk about my favorite 2-start streamers, and he was one of the first I mentioned. And I'm glad I streamed him myself because for the last 2 games, he has been lights out. I think we have to take him seriously. Now, he's been pretty solid over the course of the season. 9 starts, and he's got a 3.26 ERA, 1.13 whip. But his last 3 starts, actually, he's only given up a total of 1 run in 20 innings. That's a ridiculously good run. That's something that you have to pay attention to. Now, the downside, or the reason why I guess he has not been picked up in more leagues, again, a 22% strikeout rate is just kind of pedestrian here. But look, this is a young, talented pitcher. Again, a guy who, you heard me talk about it on the live show, has bounced around from organization to organization, 5 different franchises he's played for just in the last couple of years. But this is also a player who at one time was traded straight up, 1-for-1, for Junior Caminero, who you may know is one of the top prospects in all of baseball right now. Myers has very good stuff. If he now seemingly has figured himself out and how to throw his pitches effectively, I mean, man, this could wind up being a huge bargain for the rest of the season. All right, now what about second chance time here? Well, let's go to Atlanta, a young pitcher. I think it's finally time to buy into Spencer Schwellenbach. Now, I actually did not talk about Schwellenbach on Beat the Breakout or when he first got called up. I wanted to kind of wait and see, right? Now, with rookie pitchers, especially even high-end prospects, doesn't matter. Any rookie pitcher, you're going to see a couple of different things happen. Either A, they are on fire early and then eventually hit that negative regression, right? Things even out. Or you might see the opposite. They get hit hard early and then they kind of figure things out. They make adjustments and then you see that positive regression. Well, guess which one we've seen with Schwellenbach? His first 2 starts were rough. And you'd be glad if you didn't have him or at least put him in your lineup once he first got called up. But his last 2 starts have been really good, and he's got at least 6 innings in each of those. Now, this is finally very good news for the Braves because they keep searching for arms to kind of stay in that rotation, steady the course. There is no replacement for Spencer Strider, but they need a replacement for that rotation spot, someone who can hold it down, and they'd like to look within their organization before they start trading for players, which I know they eventually will probably do, and that's the only thing with Schwellenbach is the risk that even if he is good, he may not stay as a starter the rest of the season because very likely the Braves go out and add some arms for the trade deadline. But we still are a month away from that at least, so for now, let's buy into Schwellenbach. He was really good throughout the minors, which is why he did get the call. In fact, he got the call before Hurston Waldrop, their number 1 overall prospect did. Waldrop was rough and then got hurt. But Besides that, Schwellenbach, he's a guy who maybe doesn't have an elite pitch, not elite velocity, but he uses what I call a kitchen sink approach. He throws 6 different pitches, and look, they're all pretty effective. In fact, he has a whiff rate of at least 20% on all of those pitches so far. Now, with that said, he actually doesn't have elite strikeout numbers, but again, this is still a small sample, only 4 starts. He did have 7 Ks just in 6 innings his last time out. What's really interesting is so far, Schwellenbach has the highest chase rate in all the majors out of qualified pitchers. I think that eventually that will lead to a lot more strikeouts, because if you get guys to swing and miss is stuff that's not even in the zone, that's a good sign. He also has a low barrel rate, which again, very good sign. So while I don't say I'm going to expect Schwellenbach to be dominant from here on out, I think at the very least in the short term, it's time to finally buy into him for fantasy. Now, can we also buy into a rookie starter for the White Sox? And I'm not talking Drew Thorpe. I'm actually talking about Jonathan Cannon. Well, if you know anything about the White Sox these days, yeah, they're still bad. But besides that, Cannon definitely made some people take notice because he came 1 out shy of throwing a complete game shutout against the Astros. He's taken the same route that Schwellenbach has, except he's had a little bit longer journey. He's got more starts under his belt. He was okay in his very first start, and then he was bad the next 2 times out. It looked like he was going to be a flop, and then all of a sudden, he steadied the course. And his last 2 starts, I mean, we have to pay attention when he throws 7 innings of 1-run ball against Seattle, and then again, 8 2/3 scoreless against an Astros lineup that is pretty good. And I like the fact that he does not walk batters, a 4.5% walk rate, which is really good. Now, here's the trade-off, and yes, it's the fact that he's on the White Sox, that's part of it, but also he's not a high strikeout pitcher, at least not as of yet. Hey, something's got to give here, right? Can't have it all. But for a guy who's just freely available in pretty much every league, Cannon seems like a strong pickup. I know that I've seen one analyst say he actually likes Cannon long-term better than Drew Thorpe. I mean, I'm not out on Thorpe or anything just because of a couple of bad starts, but maybe we should be a little more in on Cannon. And that strikeout rate could jump up because as of right now, if you look, he has one of the best sweepers in the game. And that's saying something. When you have a pitch who could be a wipe-out pitch, then that inevitably could lead to more and more whiffs. And if you're still hunting for saves, we do have a possible short-term closer here. It's Chad Green in Toronto. Yimi Garcia now joins Jordan Romano, injured guy who was replacing the injured closer is now injured. So Chad Green is the next guy up. Now he only has 2 saves this year and hasn't had one recently, but eventually I figure even Toronto's got to win a close game, right? Green was solid in his time as a setup man for the Yankees for a while. This year he's been great. 1.76 ERA, 0.85 whip. Not sure exactly when Jordan Romano is going to come back. Don't think he's on the verge of returning anytime soon, but again, this is also not something that's going to probably keep him out for months. So again, think about Green as a short-term shot in the arm in leagues where saves, or at least saves and hold, count. Hopefully some of those picks can make your fantasy team better short-term and long-term. If you always want the best fantasy advice, you know where to keep it here. Videos every week for you. Check out the latest video for more fantasy advice.